Okay, let's try to understand the RPC. This is also uh, one of communication channel or protocol, you can say. Uh, so where one applications want to call or invoke a particular methods or function for another module or another application that are not on the same machine. So in this scenario, we are going to say remote procedure call. Procedure here means any function or any methods. Generally, in the programming language, you call a function, you call a method. So if those methods are inside the same machine, inside the same process, it's called a local procedure call. But when the particular function or particular methods you are trying to invoke or you are trying to call that are on the different machine, a different computer, different server. That means you, the callee and caller are the different machine, different devices. Both are connected to the internet. So in this case, how the communication happen? Is it possible or not? So from the developer perspective, who are writing the software components, they feel very easy to make the communication between the remote system or remote method, you can say. So in this scenario, this RPC protocol, remote procedure call, is a communication protocol that allows a program or software to call another procedure or methods or a function on another program or computer over the networks. So that means now generally whenever we are writing any program, any function, any software, they have lots of functions, function 1, function 2, function 3, function 4, function 4. If we can call locally without any problem, locally without any call. But what happened, the particular programs are not in this system. Now they are another machine, this is another machine, and now this the program run on another machine, and they program have a function 1, function 2, function 3, function 4. So here let's see function 2 try to call function 4. So is it possible? If local, there is no problem, it's possible. So that means somehow you are going to make the communication between the two machines, two server, two computers that are connected in the internet. So here RPC is the technique that allow a software developer or programmer can invoke another function, another methods that are running on the different machine, remote machine, remote server. So you can say it's enable distributed system to communicate each other, enabling the remote execution of a code or a data exchange. Objective of here, that means RPC protocol allow us the software component of a particular machines can able to communicate, can able to call, can able to execute another code. Maybe this is the program have some set of function. I want to start execution of this program, this function. That possible we can enable a remote execution of program. Due to the remote procedure call might be another, this is another system. Here we have a particular function written that program, but I want this function would be start executing on a particular event happen on this machine. Let's this machine f1 function fail, then I can say, hey, this function failed, can you go execute this function that's are on a different machine, that's event. So in this scenario, somehow we are enable our program, our software are able to start executing another function, another methods that are run on the different machine, different server, different location. So RPC is a kind of a protocol that's allow us to meet such a requirement. Let's understand some basic concept about this RPC. So RPC is generally the architecture behind that is the client server architecture. So this RPC generally happens, that means कि one programs or one machine considered as a client machine, one machine considered as a server machine. Okay, server machine. And now client machine have a some client program and server machine have a some server program. They are going to call, means client are going to request, hey, I want to execute the particular function that's are running on the another machine. So this is the client server architecture, you can say, where generally all the communication happen between the devices, between the computer. The one become a client which initiate, which want a particular function must be executed. I want to some response. I want to send some request. Generally, they send request. They are expecting some response. A particular action is done or executed. What are the failures? Success. So here RPC follow the client server architectures where the client requests a service from a server and the server responded to the result of the requested client. So here the procedure call. Procedure call means key procedure call is also a request to execute a particular specific method function on the server. So here procedure call means nothing, particular programs or particular function, maybe particular programs or maybe particular function or maybe particular methods. Now this client want, hey, I want to execute this method. I want to say, hey, this program has particular function. Hey, this function can be executed. Okay. So here known as that due to the remote, so that's a remote procedure call. So sometimes procedure or function or method or program or service are the synonym, you can say. Sometimes nowadays we are not generally calling procedure or function or method. Generally, in the microservice environment, we are saying, say, hey, the services, the particular functions are a particular service. Service is what is the function? Function is the set of code that meet the specific requirement. What is the service? Service is also a program that meet the specific business capability. Okay, and the between the client and server, there is a concept about the marshaling and unmarshaling. What is this marshaling and unmarshaling? So here, marshaling is a process of converting data into the format that can send over the networks. So here, notice our server is the remote location, our client is the remote location. Okay, so now our particular function, that's hey, I want to call the, they have a function f. Okay, their function name. They are expecting some input, right? This input. So I want to call this function from my client code, remote code. Okay. So while calling this function, same way, the way client is invoking, it is not possible. So somehow there is a concept where we are the whatever the client requests, we are going to convert the specific format which can travel on these networks and that receive on the server. So that means our client code are going to convert or is a particular data format that's can send over the networks. Maybe generally networks data are sent in the form of packet, in the form of byte or bit. So those forms we are going to convert. This is known as a marshaling. Once these specific data format that can transfer over the networks are received by the our server, they are going to again convert the receiving data to the specific operation so that our server know, hey, I am going to execute this function. Client want to start executing this function. Client want, this is the request parameter, this is the response parameter. So that is an unmarshaling. So here converting request to specific format that can be transferable. Now data is transferred. Now the specific transformation data can be again decompressed or unconverted so that our server can understand the original function name and input parameter. So unmarshalling is the process of converting the received data back to the original format which our server can understand. So these are basics concept about the procedure called marshalling, unmarshalling, and these are the basic components in this RPC. If you are talking about the generally the architecture is the contain your applications, the number of components, how they are interact to each other. So generally in this RPC, one should be a particular software, a particular server that is known as a client server, that is the client server, and one would be your server, that is the server request. Now client want to start executing the particular function that are served by the particular server. So this is the client and server. This is the, and there is a RPC runtimes. The RPC runtime is responsible to managing RPC communication, including marshalling and unmarshalling. Here, there would be one small program, you can say RPC runtime and RPC runtime. So RPC runtime is responsible to take your original input format, convert to the marshal data, and send on the transport layer. So this RPC also work on the transport layer. So by a transport layer, their data going to transfer here. Again, RPC runtimes read the marshalling data and unmarshal them and say, hey, the particular function, particular the procedure client want to call. Okay, so these are the basic component: your client, your server, RPC runtime, and your transport layer. This way, this are architectures of RPC is, right? So let's visual presentation of this RPC flow look like here. Notice our client. This is the one component is the client, another component is the server. Both are communicate via our transport on the transport layer, and after transport layer, after the OSI model, no, after transport layer, then IP layer, then physical layer. Finally, data is transfer on the particular wireless or Wi-Fi physical communication between these devices. Nowadays, lots of channel, maybe wireless communication, wired communication, physically connected, or fiber optic wire connected, right? So lots of so finally the this RPC is talk under the transport layer. So here, whatever the application, hey, client have a particular application, they want to, hey, client is the application, they want to execute the particular function that's served by the our server. So here client, let's keep call function F1, function F. But here this is not a function local, then means somehow we have to make some mechanism. This function can be invoked that are inside the another remote machine. So here is a concept of client and stuff and server stuff. So there is a some mechanism where we are going to convert stuff into talk. That stuff help us know, oh, this function is right. Particular server have this function, and according to our RPC runtime library, okay, this need to marshal the data, and after marshalling, they go to transport layer. Transport layer going to the physical layer, again received by the transport layer, again go to the server runtime and RPC runtime, where marshal data is unmarshal, and server system know, hey, this is the particular function I want to call, and this function going to, hey, I want to start executing the particular server function which are requested by your client. So these are the complete flow happen between the your client and server. Client application here, that is objective is that particular machines, a particular programs want to call another program, another function that's are on the reside on different machine. So we have to our client code must know, hey, this is the function I have to call. So there is a concept of stuff they are generating the stuff from the server code so that our client aware, hey, this set of function client can invoke. And according to the runtime, marshaling and unmarshaling happen, and the communication between the client and server via RPC procedure is established to exchanging data, transferring data, request response kind of things happen. Okay. So these are the specific, you can say, sequence. You can. This is a very standard procedure. Whatever we discuss similarly here. First, your client call the client machine, the gone going to the call client stub, because client stub know the detail of your server stub. Right now, the call is on the local procedure, so the parameter pushed to the stack and the normal node. So here client from the program which want to call the specific function or method, they doesn't bother they are going to the call remote or they are going to the call local. They know this is the library, this is the stub expose some function, I call my function and pass the request specific parameter. Now the responsibility of our client stub to pack the parameter into the message and make the system call to the send message. The first packing the parameter and making the format which can easily transfer on the network is known as a marshaling. Then marshaling happen. Similarly, after once marshaling, then client local operating system OS level, this going to the transport layer, and transport layer going to the physical network IP layer, network layer, physical layer. They are going to the send data to the from client machine to the server machine. And once again server machine receive this message from the operating system and then go to the server step going to the make unpack the parameter and message from the marshal data. This is known as unmarshalling happen. And after finally the server step call the server actual procedure and function. This activity happen for every RPC call. This is a sequence the way RPC communication handled by our systems. So this RPC is the, let's understand some use case and scenario. So this you can say generally all the distributed computing where the systems are deployed or connected to the on the internet with the different machines or server, where I want to do some kind of a computing power. So RPC enable us distributed computing by allow the program to execute procedure on the remote machine. So this is the techniques where the program inside one machine can execute the program reside on the another machine or can be reside on the another machine. So this is the technique mean a remote procedure call. Means ki, one machines that are differently can execute, can call the particular function, particular methods, a particular program, particular service that can be not on the same OS, same machine. So very good example nowadays in the microservice architecture, we are building different microservices. Services that means ki one specific service or serve the specific business capability. Like we discussed many times, like a services can be product service, user service, catalog service, view project, payment service, transaction service. Right now, all these are different services. Generally, all services in microservice environments are deployed on the different server, different machine. So sometimes they need to communicate to each other. One microservice that payment microservice need the customer information. The payment microservice can need to call the customer microservice, communicate and check, verify, hey, what are the customer detail, what are the customer payment informations they have right now. So for those scenario, this RPC also help us. Nowadays, in the infrastructure of cloud computing, the RPC is used in the cloud computing to enable the communication between the cloud services. Nowadays, lots of cloud services offer on the RPC base. Even you need to get, you want to create the multiple machines, instances. Nowadays, from the one your machines, you are able to start create another machines, another instruction, another scale. Everything you can deploy, everything from one machine to another machine. All the communication between the one node to another nodes are possible from the RPC. And nowadays in networking, RPC is in the networking to enable communication between the lots of devices. So you can say nowadays RPC not directly are hidden many applications infrastructure where the RPC enable to communication or exchange data between the devices between the computers. These are the famous you can say technology generally nowadays we are using maybe like very uh, nowadays very popular you can say gRPC. Google's expose how to make uh, communication between the infrastructures of microservice environments, lots of microservices. So how these microservices internally have to communicate to each other. Generally, inter microservice communication are nowadays very preferable choice is the gRPC protocol is a very high performance RPC framework developed by the Google. Even you can say Apache Thrift is also a software framework for the building RPC services. Now, previously, couple of decade when the concept of web services or microservices was started, at that time the maybe XML-RPC or JSON-RPC are popularly used. These are the very lightweight RPC protocols that used to exchange data over JSON or exchange data over the XML right now. So these are the very common terminologies that's any web service environment means ki remote where the particular function or method want to invoke remotely. So that's the web service REST API, gRPC API. Lots of communication help us where the established remote communications between the devices, between the server, between client server, between the different microservices. And lots of industries, almost every industry you can say, if we talk about Google or Amazon's or Microsoft, Oracle, any technology, Google uses gRPC to communicate between its services. AWS also is RPC communication between its services. Azure also is RPC communication between its services. Many maybe your Hadoop system also is RPC communication between the different node, different clusters. So RPC variety of use heavily used. So these are the very you can say background services from the initial developer perspective or DevOps perspective or customer perspective. They are not more visible because these are the underlying technology that's enable your microservice communication happen, service to service communication happen. So these are the basics about the your RPC. Slowly, we are going to talk specific communication channel, might maybe REST communication, maybe gRPC API communication in further session. But we, as a software engineer, our responsibility, we have to understand, we have to aware how two services are communicating, what are the different tools and technology available, so that while designing the any system that's a distributed system that help us, we easily can select and decide the appropriate open source or cloud enabled services to meet the customer requirements. So that's for the day. Thank you.